Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TrueLife podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. It's such a wonderful time to be alive, to get to speak to people today that are creating fascinating ideas and promoting so much for the future. And I have a tremendous show for you with an incredible guest, the one and only Rachael Fox Feather, a luminary in the realm of holistic healing and spiritual well-being. As a primary guide, certified psilocybin guide, and sound therapist, Rachael's journey is one of transformative resonance. She also serves as a certified sound meditation facilitator, weaving harmonious frequencies into the tapestry of the soul. Her practice is a testament to the power of resonant energy medicine, a profound exploration of the healing melodies that traverse the pathways of existence. With Rachael, a voyage of mind and spirit awaits, where the vibrations of sound and ancient wisdom converge to guide, heal, and awaken. Rachael, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, George. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for that. I've been thinking about our conversation for quite some time, and we had a short conversation when we spoke with the team at Moksha Journeys, and we spoke a little bit about sound therapy. And I was just hopeful that perhaps you could give, for those who may not have been able to check in on that one, perhaps you could give a little bit of a background and what sound therapy is and how it's different than regular sound we hear every day.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to explain that. I think to start, it's important to understand that the basis of this modality is on the fact that everything in this universe and existence is based off of a vibration. So if you look at like atoms, right, which make up all of matter, there are particles that are spinning around the atoms, right? That rotation is an oscillation. It's a vibration. In fact, if you were to take that oscillation and you were to like flatten it out and stretch it out, what you would see is the shape of a waveform. It'd be like this. So in essence, everything is vibration. Everything is sound. So the way that sound therapy works is that we take known healing frequencies, healing sounds, and we introduce these vibrations to the human biofield and the human body. And naturally, the body has this intrinsic ability to want to heal itself. So it's going to want to resonate with those healthy frequencies. So it can bring anything that's dissonant within us, which could be considered a source of disease or discomfort, different psychological, mental conditions, and all kinds of things. You know, we have this opportunity to resonate with the healing frequency, which is what our bodies naturally would want to do. So I work with there's a lot of different kinds of healing frequencies out there. I work primarily with what's called the planetary frequencies. The planetary frequencies they're very, very ancient. They are first recorded and spoken of in the Vedas, which are ancient texts in Sanskrit, very, very old. And this wisdom of the planetary frequency specifically was reintroduced to the modern Western mind by a man named Hans Cousteau. I think it was back in the 50s. And he was a Swiss mathematician and a musicologist. And he essentially came across this information and once again reinterpreted it in his book called The Cosmic Octave. So what it all can boil down to in this book, it's a very heady read. It's very interesting. Is that there's like a formula. It's a process of like octavation, which if you're a musician, you would understand what that means. Octavization. And this concept, you can take the cycle of any planet, say the Earth moving around the sun, or Mars, or Venus, or there's all these different cycles of the moon. There's there's a cycle of the tilt of the Earth, moving in a precession, and all of these things. You can basically plug it into this equation, and what you will come out with is a number that can be like a Hertz frequency within the audible range of human hearing. So a lot of research has been done on these planetary frequencies, and they turn out to have very like consistent and measurable effects on the physical human body, like specific organs. It'll affect the emotional body in certain ways, and these can be repeated time and time and time again. And so that's what I work with in my practice. And I love it so much because I feel like it's this beautiful weaving of the ancient wisdom traditions of spirituality, um, connection with the universe and the cosmos, and of science. It's beautiful coalescing of all of those things.
It's fascinating to me on so many levels. And it seems to me that sound may be one of the primary bridges that on one side you can stand in front of science, and then you can cross over and stand next to spirituality, and you can measure it. Like a lot of the times what science and spirituality battle about is this inability to measure things. But when you're breaking down things into waves and you're talking cross-generational, like it's really profound to me to think about the resonance or the music, like you had mentioned, the music of the spheres, where the space between the planets gave rise to harmonies and influence. It's so you know what? I think maybe we should introduce the instrument that you use, that you have been using, and that you are one of only a few people that have. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I play an instrument called a kotomo. Um, it's an instrument that was first developed in Europe for the purpose of sound therapy, and it's an unusual instrument. It's relatively new. I have met very, very few people who have heard of them. I have met a couple other people that play them, but what makes my instrument different is that um, mine is like a concert quality. It's very, very large. It's over 5 feet long, has 56 strings. It's double sided. A lot of the kotomos that are out there and very readily available, they're a lot smaller. So they're easier to make when they're much smaller like that. It's also a lot more portable in that kind of a way. But my instrument was created by a master luthier. So he's a man who makes string instruments. He started off making violins. And eventually he entered the realm of sound therapy growing up in Germany as like one of the OGs, I guess you could say, in the European sound therapy world. And he's one of, I believe, there's like 3 people who have the skill to be able to build these like concert quality kotomos. And so he is the only person in the United States and in North America that is building these quality of instruments. The other 2 instrument makers are living in Europe still. And this is also the person that I studied sound therapy with. He worked a lot with paraplegics and people with severe head injuries and these kinds of things. And his school is called Heaven of Sound, and it's based in Sandpoint, Idaho. Really, really wonderful, in-depth program. Really approaching it from the aspect of like science and like just a clinical medical treatment, which is something I really, really appreciated about that program very much. So anyway, the kotomo is 56 strings, and as I said, it's double-sided. So it's like a long rectangular shaped instrument. Every time that I take it somewhere to play, whether for sound meditation or for a private session, I have to rebuild it each time. So I have to take it out of the case and I have to put legs on it and I have to retune it. And it could be a whole process that can take 30 minutes sometimes. Just to get it put together. And one side of the instrument, so it's a combination of 3 string instruments that are all combined together as one. So there are different ways that you can play it so that you're basically essentially playing all these different string instruments simultaneously. And it creates this really amazing ocean, I would say, like this beautiful ocean of vibration and sound that is extremely soothing and peaceful, very meditative. One side of the instrument is a monochord. And this is an instrument that comes out of the Mediterranean. Essentially, nearly all of the strings are tuned to the same note. So there's actually only 2 notes, and that I keep my instrument tuned to, and they're all tuned to the different planetary frequencies. So it would say be like a C sharp and a G sharp, and there's 2 octaves of the C sharp, and then 1 octave of the G. So it's very simple. It's a very, very simple kind of an instrument. But what happens with that monochord is it's just creates this trance-inducing, like very heavenly, oceanic kind of a sound. It's just like these waves of like crashing, healing vibration that just keeps repeating upon itself. And that's important in the realm of sound therapy, because it's that kind of a repetition of sounds that will basically entrain the brain to enter it into like an altered state of consciousness. You can drop into deeper states of trance when you're listening to these like repetitive patterns. So that's why that monochord is there. And it's simple, but just the subtlest ways of the amount of pressure that you're putting on the strings. What finger are you strumming the strings with? It's like you can get where upon the board of the instrument are you strumming. You can get these like different subtleties of overtones and just like different sounds that can come out of just the monochord alone. And then on the other side of the instrument is a tempura, which is an instrument that comes from India. It's only 4 strings. It's very, very simple. And it's also another like a drone kind of a sound, like the monochord is. It's like there's a repetition of the strings and of the notes. It's very, very mystical, beautiful, this almost yes, just very like mystic, a very mystic kind of sound to me. And then also on that same side of the instrument is a Japanese harp instrument called the koto, very similar to another instrument coming from China called like guzheng, which people may have seen. And so that is 16 strings, and they are each and every string has its own little triangular bridge. So it'll like wherever, depending on where you're tuning it, right? So instead of like the bridge being like just a straight bar across one side of the strings, it's somewhere in the middle of the instrument, and it's just this little triangular wooden piece that lifts the string off the board. And it's just a beautiful, playful harp kind of a sound there. And what's unique about that little bridge is that you can do things like put your hand on the other side of the string, and you can like wiggle it, and you'll get a wah 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 kind of sound out of the note that you're playing. So hence the name Kotamo, Koto Tempura Monochord. And
It's fascinating to me. On some level, I get this picture of like a tuning fork, the way in which you're able to create melodies and sound frequencies and waves. They help the person resonate with that. Like, and people know if you have a tuning fork and you hit it, then the other forks will begin resonating with that. So I guess another question I'm thinking about is how did you, when you went to school to learn and you began this relationship with this instrument, maybe you could speak about that, and then what does that mean for your relationship with the person you're working with? It sounds like a very intricate, sort of passionate, sort of container for a relationship to be in. I'm curious how that all plays together.
Yes. It's an interesting question. Well, I guess my relationship with sound and frequency and in this body of work was that it was music has always been a huge healer for me personally. And everything from just like being a young person and using music as an outlet to have something to resonate with what I was feeling and to help me get through, maybe some tough moments. I'm sure that we can all relate to that,
Yeah.
how music can just sometimes it can be the very thing that saves us, or provides a vehicle for some kind of revelation or inspiration, or for the next step in our own healing. Um, and also for me, through vicariously through music, was dance. I found a lot of healing in the ecstatic dance community. And and just I don't know, I've always had this very strong relationship with music and sound and singing. And sometimes I used to go out into the woods and my whole life, and I would just start singing, and not for anybody, just for myself. And I would sing to the trees, and I would sing to the birds and the wind, and I could sing my sadness, and I could sing my questions and my confusion, and I could hear, it would almost be like I could feel like the world would sing back to me, and then I could sing that song
Yeah.
too. And I mean, it's been a part of my journey. Um, so music was always there for me, and I became very ill at a point in my life. I had contracted a co-infection from a tick bite,
Mm.
something called babesiosis, and it destroyed a lot of the connective tissue in my body, and I was in a lot of pain, and had all kinds of strange, like, neurological things that were connected with that were going on, and it was a really hard time for me, especially as somebody who, again, like, I loved music. I loved to go out and I loved to dance and to move to it. And that was a big part of my healing. And I couldn't do that really anymore. Um, I was bedridden for about 6 or 7 months, and I
Wow.
could hardly get up and move. And during that time, I eventually this is going to answer the question, but I feel like
Yeah, perfect.
it kind of just sets it all up for me,
Please.
and like how I came to this path and how I relate to others now through the vibration and the sound. So I was in this like feverish kind of delirium state. When you're sick, sometimes it's almost like you're dreaming. And so I was in this very medial kind of space between the seen and the unseen, and dealing with all this pain and these strange things that were happening in my body. And I was very scared. And suddenly, one day, it was like I could hear this music. It just started coming to me, and I felt like it was holding me and that it was cradling me. And I could feel this music coming into my joints and in the places where I was experiencing pain. And could feel this soothing of that, and almost even like an acceptance of just like, okay, like it's not okay, but this is okay right now. And like, I can accept what life is giving me. And this music I was hearing in my head, um, it was like my lifeline. And I would go to sleep and I would dream about it. And then I would wake up and I feel like I could still hear it. And this went on for a few days. And I started thinking to myself, like, I think there's something going on here. I'm a yeah, um, I'm a very spiritual person, and I just felt like perhaps there was an angel speaking to me in that moment. And I was like, I have a feeling that there's something there's something to this. This isn't just something I'm making up in my head. And so, from my bed, I got on my computer and I started doing all of this research on some of the sounds I was hearing. I could kind of make out I knew about the monochord instrument already, um, having a very small one of my own. And I thought, this kind of sounds like a monochord. Maybe I'm just going to listen to some monochord music. That feels like a good idea. And so it was through that path that I came across the music of the Kotomo. And I heard this music and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, that's it. This is it. And I was elated to find it. And so essentially, it is through it is through that illness and this experience of illness that I had that drew me to that instrument, the kotumo. And I became just completely obsessed with listening to it. And I thought to myself, it's like, I need to learn, I need to find out more about this. And and I found out about my school that I went to and the teacher that I studied with and the instruments that he builds. And I thought to myself at first, like, I'm going to go and I'm going to go there and I'm going to, I'm going to get one of these instruments. I'm going to play it. And I'm going to see what this is all about, what sound therapy is all about, and how, I've experienced some sound healings, but this seemed like a completely different level of that. And it was. And I went and I experienced through my teacher the power of sound therapy on the physical body. And I was just completely amazed. And so one thing led to another, and I just wanted to keep going back and studying and training. And, eventually I was able to heal myself from the babesiosis, and I rebuilt the tissues in my body, and I'm able to move and do my thing once again. And the sound and I did that with different herbs, like Ayurvedic detox protocols. I kind of hit it from a lot of different angles, but the music and coming into a space of a peaceful mind and of acceptance, I felt like were really, really crucial and key to my healing process. There were things I had to let go of and come into acceptance within myself in order to like move past the pain that I was experiencing, that I felt like on some level was manifesting in my own body because I was holding maybe some kind of a painful frequency in my own mind, and it's like it manifested in this way. That's how I look at it now anyway. So having had that experience of sound for myself in all of these different ways throughout my life, and especially through the experience of planetary frequencies and my own personal healing, I know how powerful it can be. And so when I'm working with another person, I feel like, I don't know, I suppose I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for the vibration because I know how much it's helped me. And then being able to be in a position to facilitate, the creation of that kind of sound for another person to experience, it really brings me a lot of joy and sense of purpose. And I really also believe too that it's like that frequency of like gratitude is like that is what creates miracles. And it's just it's a beautiful thing. It's just like, wow, it's like I'm using this instrument and this music to speak to like the soul of another person, because we are all vibration. We are all just these different frequencies that are vibrating in a field, and we are existing in an even larger field of all of these different vibrating frequencies. So it's the instruments that I use they're like, it's a tool and it's a language. And planetary frequencies, it's like the language to me, I'm like viewing this as like a language of the universe of,
I love it. I was thinking, the word language came into my mind, and when you had spoken about dance, like I see dance as a form of language, and in fact, I see words is but a fragment of language. They're like maybe they're a vowel or they're a consonant, but all these things together, be it poetry or dance or music or intention or these feelings that we have, I think all of them come together to make up a language. And I love the way in which you describe the language speaking to the soul. And I think it speaks volumes of being able to help someone after you've had the lived experience of helping yourself. I think there's something there that happens, and you can begin to see those frequencies on some level. In some heightened states of awareness, people talk about this form of synesthesia where they can see sounds. And on some level, maybe that's what is happening, is that you have this ability to, in different states of consciousness, to see the frequencies of the language. And Yeah, I'm kind of getting out in the woods now, but maybe we could talk a little bit more about this idea of language. Do you think that maybe some of these problems that are manifesting through mental illness or disease is just a problem with frequency? Like maybe the person's a bad dancer and they're just acting out their life as a bad dance. Like they've never been taught, or maybe they don't know. I don't know, but like, is that possible that we're just learning this new language and these frequencies are helping us?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to be said there. And there's a lot of different avenues. I do, I really do believe that, our mental state it's a web of frequency. So it's like your thoughts can be measured by a machine as as like a
Right.
vibration. So that's proven. And and a lot of the old like mystic and different kinds of medial or shamanic types of traditions, um, they will say that like all disease is born from like maybe a thought
Mm.
or a belief that we're carrying about something. And it's like, oh, maybe, and even when you talk about dance and the body and like somatics and things like that, it's like, oh, maybe that thought, it's like, sure, we're having it in our head, but maybe it's actually like over here somewhere, and it's like, I'm always like, have this like tension in my shoulder. Like, what is that about? It's like, well, maybe that's like um, a dissonant thought. Because I believe that when we're in resonance, we're in a state of ecstatic being, of ecstatic awakening. It's a joyful frequency. It's a state of acceptance and true unconditional love. Um, there's no fear there in that space. And just for me personally, when I was like went through my illness, I had this it was very startling, but I felt like I had this realization of like, oh, like I'm in so much pain in my body right now that I'm paralyzed. And I realized like, wow, like I go here in my mind all the time. Like just not having
Yeah.
any, not without having any, or choosing, I was choosing that to not have control of going into these places of some maybe say depression, things
Sure.
like that. I called it the realm of emptiness, just like thinking
Mm.
about things that not only weren't real, but there was just like nothing really for me in those places. And it would feel painful. And now I'm like, wow, I did that so much. And now there's like a physical pain manifesting in my body. It's just like my mind created that. And the frequency I was holding in my mind, perhaps it's like now it's like stuck. Um, so I really do truly believe that, our thoughts become things, they become feelings, they can become like physical things that happen to us. Um, and, I've kind of seen it in some people that I've worked with, like like a man who is very angry, having heart problems, just like, oh, this like constricting like anger. And then now he was like having heart issues and
Mm.
um, things of that kind of nature. I've also known um, another woman who actually also was having heart issues. I've seen a few people with
Yeah.
different kinds of heart things going on. And but for her, she had she was in a state of grief and she had like cut herself off from her own like creativity and allowing herself to feel joyful. And then her heart was hurting, like on a physical level, And so, yeah. And I also think too about intrusive frequencies. We're surrounded by all like these different electronics. There's frequencies coming in through, you could even think of like the different things you might see on TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of things that are unhealthy around us in this world, and each of those things is emitting a frequency. It is affecting us. Everything that like we are taking in with our body and like with our eyes and with our ears, it's going to be affecting us on some level. So I think it's completely possible to protect yourself essentially from these kinds of things, and like being mindful of like what it is that we're taking into our bodies and into our minds. And um meditating is really important to keep your own inner frequency strong. And you don't want to be swayed by all of the different things that are going on around you. You have to have that strength to be the resonator, um, instead of trying, being the one who's being resonated by all of these different things that are going on around us. Um, I also just, I have personal ideas too of just like over culturalization and how we've been cut off, um, from a very young age from our experience of what is the medial and what is the unseen. We can't see vibration, but we feel
Mhm.
it. And when I talk about the medial, that's a bit of what I'm talking about, like unseen realms and dreams, and the power of our imagination and things that we can't necessarily explain, but are there and that they are true. Um, I think all of these things can create a basis for mental illness and depression, and which in turn, and obsessive thinking, which can in turn also create disease in our bodies.
It's wonderful. I often think in my own life, or people I know and I love, when they get into a dark spot, it a lot of it comes from inner dialogue. It comes from however that's programmed in them, whether it's something like the place of emptiness that you talk about, or maybe it's something that was passed down from generation to generation. But it is this frequency that, whether it's the frequency with which they tell themselves, whether it's the frequency of the environment that they keep going back to, but these ideas, and we go back to language, whether it's frequency or what do you resonate with. It seems to me that this idea of music is submersed in our language, and it's all around us, and it's the way we react to people, and it's how we bounce things off each other. Like, it's so part of our language that how could we not be taking the idea of sound and resonance on a deeper level and meaning to me? And it's I guess it's a lot of the times we hear about something called the golden ratio. And if you look at fractals, or you look at the way in which the earth is constructed, be it the human body or the way the mycelium grows underneath the trees, there's this golden ratio. And is there a relationship to the golden ratio in sound?
Um, well, I can't say I'm, surely,
Sure.
surely it's like as a, especially as like a mathematical kind of an
Right.
equation, music theory, for example, that's all based on math, down to like the essential point of what it is. uh a
Right.
different, different octaves, different harmonies, all of these kinds of things are just different ratios. Like, okay, so if you have like a string on a
Right.
string instrument, right? If you were to say, put your finger in the middle of the string and then like pluck it over here, it's going to be a different note. And then if you take like a third of that, that's going to be a different note, but it's going to be, there's going to be a harmony that's happening. So, so I can see how the concept of like golden ratio and also different kinds of sacred geometry can absolutely be
Right.
applied to music and music theory and music therapy and all of these things. Yeah.
It's interesting that we use the idea of harmony in mathematics, and seeing sound in some ways. When I think of the idea of like resonance, is resonance central to sound therapy? Like, how do you see it aligning with like the ancient concepts of harmonious proportions and the way it affects our bodies and mind?
Yes, the idea and of resonance is
Yeah.
completely well the sound therapy is like based off of. So there's a difference between sound healing and sound therapy. and music therapy. They're all different. And they all can be very, very healing to the body, the mind, the spirit, the heart, all of the things. And so where we have sound healing, we there I'm sure that you've been to a sound healing, maybe in a yoga studio or something like that, where somebody come out with all these beautiful instruments, and there'll be crystal bowls, and there'll be gongs, and maybe there's a flute or like different bells and chimes, and an atmosphere, like a very meditative, beautiful atmosphere is created with these instruments. And sound healing, it doesn't necessarily need to incorporate like what can be considered like scientific healing frequencies. It's beautiful meditative music, right? It's like, it doesn't matter if it's a technical scientific sound healing frequency or not. It's still going to drop you into a meditative space. And it's that meditative space, that's where we can experience a lot of healing, and new ways of looking at things, insights, revelations can happen. Healing can speed up in the body because you're essentially in a state of rest. So your cells are going to be regenerating a lot quicker. So sound healing is creating this atmosphere of beautiful meditative music, specific kinds of instruments that can induce that sort of sleepiness, more or less. And then there's music therapy, and music therapy is a lot about using composition to induce and reflect different emotional states. So that's also very different than like meditative sound healing experiences, or even what sound therapy is. Because it's more about using composition to, like, maybe you want to, like, to help somebody through whatever it is that they're going through. And sometimes that could even a little bit of that is actually creating some dissonance at times, because it's like sometimes you need to hear that dissonance in order to bring it to the surface. And then in music therapy, it's like the composition will change to create a resolution of that thing that was brought up. So you know and then with sound therapy, is like it's the application of healing frequencies to the body, scientific healing frequencies to the body. So it's all very different. And so in my practice, I use hand-hammered Tibetan singing bowls primarily. I do have my kotomo instrument that I really like to use that for groups. But when I'm working like one-on-one with people, I'm usually using hand-hammered Tibetan singing bowls. And and I have a little bit of like a coaching interview sort of a process before I begin with the client. What are the issues that you want to address? And I try to get an idea of like where are they feeling in that moment, and how are they feeling about different areas in their life. Just trying to get this idea of the whole picture of what's going on in the being, and maybe some things that could be beneath the surface. And then at that point, I choose what frequencies I think are going to work best for that person. So each of my singing bowls has actually gone through spectral analyzing equipment. So, and they hit these these healing frequencies very, very precisely. So it's like, I know exactly what's going on in each of those singing bowls. And I'll put them either on the body, or sometimes like I have some very large bowls that I put underneath my massage table. I'll put them on sometimes I'll put them on stools, like near the head, or, if somebody isn't comfortable with having a bowl on their body. And, and then I just sometimes I'm also moving them over the body and through the aura and the energy field. And what this does is it's creating a cocoon of these different healing frequencies and these sounds. So like every cell in the body is literally being vibrated on this micro kind of a level. And so it's introducing this healthy healing frequency, right? So whatever is, maybe out of tune in the body, it's like, like there's the healing frequency. That's like where I'm supposed to be here in my being. And the body is going to it's going to start to attune to that. It's going to start to resonate, just like you were talking about with the tuning forks. Actually the same thing happens on my kotsumel instrument, because it's double-sided. So, I might have, I have like C sharp strings, and I'll pluck the C sharp string on the monochord side, and then all of a sudden my tempora will start droning. It's very much like that in the human body within sound therapy and resonance. It's like on this, like, it's a very, very subtle level. But when you turn your attention inward and into that, it's like you can feel it happening. And everybody experiences something different. But a lot of people at times, when something's really, dissonant, will feel it on a very physical level. And it could feel almost like a pain, like almost like a little cramp, or there's like a little pinch going on. And it can happen anywhere in the body. And it's just like you'll feel that little pinch, and it'll kind of move a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like it just smooths out. And like sometimes in those moments, people will describe having like a memory, like a childhood memory could come up that's associated with that dissonance, or like there's an emotion, or an obsessive thought that's like, oh, there it is. And then it'll literally, it'll start to resonate with the healthy frequency, and it'll just like gently smooth out. So resonance is really, really important in the realm of sound therapy specifically. It's the basis of how, how the whole modality works, essentially.
It's fascinating to me. Are there different, I guess I'm wondering about, and I'm sure this takes, the more you do it, the better you get at things, and the more you understand, no matter what you're involved in. But if you're in this space with an individual versus a group, like what are some of the differences? Like with an individual, you could work specifically with them, but is there a difference between group, or is there different things people should work on between a group and an individual, or how are those things similar and different?
Well, in my like one-on-one kind of work, it's we can get a lot more specific about things. It's obviously, it can be a very intimate experience for people, because if you think about it, like let's say, regardless of how much somebody chooses to share with me, like speaking, or before we actually get into the session, and the reason for that is that sound touches us all on a very, very deep, deep level. And it's like you can come to a person, and maybe you don't want to share everything, and you put up a wall here. You're like, oh, maybe I'll tell them this, but I'm not going to let them know about the pain that's in here. We have masks, and we have these different faces that we show people, and a lot of people are not very vulnerable when you first meet them, which is appropriate. These boundaries are definitely appropriate. But the thing with sound is that no matter what kind of a wall you try to put up, it's vibration. It's just it literally passes through your physical body. There's nothing that you can do. Hold up something against it. So, it can be a very like, intimate in that kind of an aspect, very emotional for people. So, so the one-on-one work, it's like I'm able to really get very, very specific with what frequencies that I choose to use for that person to address the thing that is the most important to address. Or it's like if we have a goal in mind, we can like, create the perfect concoction of frequency and vibration to help achieve that goal, to be like that vehicle that person can travel on, to achieve what it is that they're trying to achieve. In a group, it can be similar in a way, but I'm a lot more selective about what frequencies I'll introduce to a group. And the reason for that is that, like, you know, some of these healing frequencies, they're very, very powerful, and they can bring up a lot of things for people. You know, like there's a frequency out there that was taught to me is called Hopi Heart, and it's actually it's based on I wish I could tell you exactly what it is. But it's based on a frequency from the Grand Canyon, which is considered to be like the birthplace of a lot of the indigenous peoples in the Southwest. And this particular frequency happens to really put people in touch with their inner child. And it's very gentle, and it's very, you know, loving and lighthearted. But, you know, for those of us who maybe have wounding to our childhood innocence, or some like old
Mm.
childhood memory that can be disturbing, it can be very emotional for people. And people will just start remembering things that they had forgotten about their childhood. So, you know, I have brought that frequency in for a group sound healing, but I'm very careful because um, a lot of the time when people come into a group, you know, it could be their very first time experiencing something like that. And they may not actually be fully, like, oh, yeah, I've been to a sound healing
Mm.
before. It was so relaxing and it was so nice. And it's just like, well,
Mm.
this is a little different because, like,
Mm.
we're using these very powerful healing frequencies that can bring things up, and they can bring up different emotions. And if somebody, you know, I just never know if somebody's really going to be prepared for that. So in my group sound healings, I always select frequencies that are to be considered within the realm of this modality, to be very, very gentle, very relaxing, revitalizing. um, you know, I don't want to you can really upset people sometimes. And it's actually, this kind of brings me to a really important point.
Yeah.
um, when it comes to, you know, sound healing, especially here in the United States, just something that I've witnessed is, um, you know, people bringing in different frequencies without really knowing what it is that they're bringing into like a group space like that. You know, for example, it's a when with gongs. You can very easily buy a planetary gong, and I've seen them in different sound healings before. Like somebody, you know, like, oh, here's like an earthier gong, which is, you know, earthier is a very common planetary frequency that's very, very gentle. It's actually a pure ohm tone, which is amazing to me. And it's based on the cycle of the Earth going around the sun, like a full year around the sun is Om, pure Om, our home, right? So
Mm.
it's that sense of, wow, I'm at peace. I'm in a space of safety. I'm here at home. It resonates with the heart and the circulatory system. It's very, very relaxing. But you know, I've seen somebody bring in. I've gone to a sound healing before, and they had a gong there, and they weren't they weren't a certified sound therapist or anything like that. They didn't have training like that, and they brought in a Pluto gong. Now, the energy of Pluto in a group sound healing bath is, like, I think, a very, very unwise choice. And the reason for that is that that's a frequency. It's super powerful. It's incredibly powerful, and it's really amazing. Like I use it very rarely, even on my one-on-one work, and I get people ready for that over a series of different treatments before I'll even think about trying to bring that one in, because it's a frequency of transformation, and it can it's like it's how do you say um it brings us to face the things that we are afraid of.
Mm.
So sometimes that frequency can actually bring up the energy of fear, like,
Mm.
and it gets you thinking, what is it that I'm afraid of? And it brings it up so that you can face that and overcome that fear that you have.
Right.
So, you know, I have, I've seen that in a sound healing before. And this was before, I remember it was before I even went to school and was like thinking about all this, but I specifically remember that sound healing because I was so uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable in that room, and I couldn't figure out why. It's just like, it sounds beautiful, but like I'm like crawling out of my skin right now. So, I really encourage people who are interested in sound healing, doing things for groups, whether you're doing it already or like looking at a school, is to just be like really, really mindful of the frequencies that you are incorporating into your sound healing, and like make sure that you can really be sure what it is that you're playing for people. There's also another frequency. It's actually the frequency of Mars. Um, and it's another very, very powerful frequency. It's super energizing. If It's one of the best ones to use with somebody who's got like any kind of like immune things coming up, or if you're sick, it can really be very stimulating to the immune system. It's super, super energizing. It gives you that like that chutzpah to like just tackle the bull by the horns, and like whatever the obstacle is, it just gives you that to go ahead and go out there and go and do it and deal with it. But it can also trigger epileptic seizures if somebody's prone to that. So, so you have to be really careful. Frequency is so powerful. And yeah, so I think those are the main differences really between the one-on-one work that I do and then the group work that I do. It's the one-on-one, it's like I have the opportunity to bring in these more powerful frequencies at time if that's what that person needs. But then I also have that understanding of like, where are you at? What is your condition? Can I suss out what it is that you're really ready for? And in groups, the main goal is to really just create a relaxing atmosphere for people. But also with that, like if I were to do a group with my singing bowls, for example, I'll oftentimes like ask everybody, like, how are you arriving here today? Where are you at right now in this moment? And I can listen to the group and I can like hear what is the collective saying that we all need right now? And then I can choose the frequencies based on that. So.
It's mesmerizing to me. Most people may not think of it, but there's so much that sound does. I read an article when you began talking about the sounds of Pluto or Mars, or how things can be really uncomfortable. As you can hear this lawnmower coming outside my house right now, it's kind of uncomfortable. But there are things like I know I read a while back that in Guantanamo they were using the sound of a crying baby playing 24 hours a day to instill like a level of uncomfortableness in the people there. Anybody who has a child realizes how loud that tone can be, and not loud in strength, but loud as it calls to your heart. Like it's calling you to action. If you just think about how powerful that is, it blows my mind to think about how dangerous and how powerful some tones and sounds can be, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that have happened in the future. There's a lot of things that sound has helped us with in the past. And as we look at the past as a potential predictor of future behavior, how do you see the world of sound evolving? Do you think that on some level, once we begin using it and understanding it for healing, that maybe it has other applications, maybe for helping us solve problems as a community or helping people attain a higher sense of learning? Do you think it could be used for those particular modalities as well in the future?
Absolutely. I really, truly believe we are on the precipice of a whole new like age of healing with sound and frequency. I've become privy to some of the latest research that's emerging around sound and vibration and its use in like healing and whatnot. And it's like honestly, I am so excited. I am so I am so excited for what's coming. And for this knowledge to become more mainstream and common in the human culture and consciousness. For starters, to first kind of answer your question, like, can you imagine for a moment if let's say world leaders are coming together to discuss some kind of issue or problem, and what are we going to do about this? And like, what if everybody just took 20 minutes to meditate, to some healing frequency and sound that opens your mind, like frequency, like the frequency of Uranus, for example, it can really help people to let go of the past so that you can embrace new ways of thinking and new ideas and things like that. And then, and then again, there's that Om, the earthier frequency. It really helps us to accept things as they are and to come into a space of just true tolerance of everything that's going on around us. So can you just imagine if just even people at work, like teams, all kinds of different scenarios, if you could just take 20 minutes to just drop in together as a group, and just listen to these tones, because 20 minutes is really all it takes to for the brain to switch into a different state. I've watched the most resistant people on my table just slowly start to nod off and drop into a deeper state of consciousness, just by listening to these frequencies for 20 minutes is the longest that I've seen it take. And, and it's if people could just take the time to do that together, it's very unifying as well, because, a part of the realization that can come from many, many, many people who experience this is everything is sound, everything is frequency. I am one with all of this because we are all vibration. It really, when the brain changes like that, that becomes very apparent, and we feel that more in our bodies and in our cells. And I can just imagine people taking time together, different groups of people, to do something like that, something that's unifying with breath and meditation. And it'll calm the nervous system. You can think more clearly. It can create that sense of tolerance and acceptance for others and different viewpoints. And I feel like there's so much potential if people could collectively enter spaces like that together to discuss issues and problems and try to find the solutions. It may come more easily. And I do believe also we're on the precipice of a lot of vibration and sound being incorporated into hospitals, into the medical systems. I've had the opportunity to learn some really amazing new research around cymatics, and just the true nature of sound and vibration, and what's happening with it in the human body and how it's affecting the body. Cymatics is the visual representation of vibration and sound. So you may have seen, many people have seen before, these different images of sound, and they'll be they'll create these beautiful patterns, different frequencies. It's there's all these different kinds of experiments. We're taking sand on a metal plate, for example, and then the plate is vibrating with different frequencies, and then the sand will arrange itself into these amazing, perfect geometric shapes and patterns. So within that body of research, there's been all these different experiments with a pulsing sound through water as a medium. And just think about it, how our bodies, our human bodies, we are mostly water, right? We are mostly liquid, perfect medium for sound to travel through. And so anyway, there's a few things that were discovered, is that sound is spherical. So we're creating waves with our mouth, but it's actually these bubbles, right, of sound that are being created. So it's moving in all directions. And also, within that, so the human voice can create these perfect geometries of sound. And with some of these experiments were done with water. Instead of water as a medium, it's also been done with blood as a medium, human blood. And there was this one experiment that was done where a man was toning, just toning notes into this blood. And it, the pattern that we see, the perfect geometries and stuff in cymatics, it's you can imagine, it's a cross section of the sphere, You just like cut it in half, and like that's the shape there. But there's actually like these 3D geometries of vibration that are occurring. So anyway, they took that cross section and they see, oh, like look at this beautiful, perfect geometry produced by just a human voice. You know, it's amazing, like what we are able to do, with our own bodies. So, and that this in this pattern, it oxygenated the blood. So the part, where the actual vibration and the ripples were, if you would, that blood turned bright red, and it was just like it increased about, I think, it's like 12% more oxygen than the rest of the blood. And then the man stopped toning, and that imprint remained on the blood for a full 15 minutes after the sound had stopped. And so I mean, that is just fascinating to me. And then that led to, there's all these other experiments done with like different kinds of music being played to blood, and like different frequencies and all of these things. And it turned out that no matter what you're listening to, no matter what kind of musical environment that you are immersed in, your blood is going to increase by a minimum of about like 11%. And it'll increase more with the more like sub-bass frequencies that are in music. It's like those really deep bass tones actually increase more oxygen in your blood, which, makes me think of like, honestly, like music concerts and things like that. It's like, oh yeah, people love the bass and we love to dance to that bass. And it's like, well, it's literally increasing the oxygen in our blood when we're listening to that kind of music. Also very interesting discoveries about sound and vibration are that all sound is preceded by light. All sound is preceded by light. So, or I'm sorry, or infrared light. And it's just really amazing to think about, because like our cells communicate through infrared light. So therefore our cells are communicating with vibration. Our thoughts are vibration. Therefore our thoughts are infrared light. Our songs that we singing are literally reaching the stars, because it is light. And it's just the sound wave, it'll stop after a certain point. It'll peter out and you can't hear it anymore. But the light travels infinitely. And vice versa, the stars are constantly singing to us, like they are vibrating, and we are like being sent all this light. And to me, I mean, that's just a really amazing thing to really think about, and the implications of that, because we already know that infrared light can be very regenerating for the body as it is. So what else can come from that? I've heard of technologies being developed that's using infrared light and vibration to, like in hospital beds, where they can be programmed to help healing with different ailments. There are these, I wish I could remember what they were called, but there's this technology of this, it's like almost like this thing you put your feet in. And if you think of like reflexology, and acupuncture and all these kinds of things, it's like, all of the organs and the different parts of the body can be accessed through the ears, the feet, and the hands. So there's this device that you can put your feet into, and it'll just do this different kinds of like vibration reflexology, and it'll literally heal all these different parts of your body. And I also heard, this is the one I just think this is so cool. I've heard about this technology being developed of these, it's kind of like these visors for people who can't see. And what it is that it reads the environment, the visual environment, creates a map that is based on infrared light, and then beams it into the back of the eyes. And the brain is able to create this image, based on just the infrared light, which is vibration. A lot of this stuff is just like really just now up and coming, but I truly believe that there's going to become a point in the probably not too far future where, We could be having these kinds of hospital beds in every single hospital. It's going to be very accessible for people to reach. I think that the modalities around, the true nature of healing sound and like sound therapy is going to become a lot more popular and a lot better understood as time goes on. And I'm really excited, for all of the different potential that's there. I've also heard about different concepts around virtual reality and using VR to shift consciousness, and like kind of like the reprogramming of the mind by using different colors of light and pulsing different frequencies through the body. And it's like you can basically inducing different experiences through people just through light and sound. And like with the VR, you're just fully immersed in it, and you can literally change minds with a tool like that. Yeah, so it's very, very exciting, and I just can't wait to see what's coming next.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We seem to be on the forefront of learning so much, maybe learning so much about what we don't know. When you just look at the environment around us, like bats use echolocation, like they're using their voice to figure out where they are in the canyon or figure out where they are in the world. And on some level, if you just yell at your hand, close your eyes, you can tell how close your hand is, and like what it just I'm so thankful for the future that's emerging, because it seems to me that we're beginning to relearn all of this wisdom and techniques that people before us had access to, or somehow we've shut ourselves off to it. And I think what you're doing is a big part of helping people be educated and what it means to listen to the frequencies of nature, or more than that, listen to the language of nature. On some level, I think you're really tapping into that and showing people, like, look at this beautiful language that surrounds us and how it can heal us. In a previous conversation, you had mentioned that there is, I think you have some tool or modality that a person can get into, like this drum or something like that. Do you remember talking about that, where they can be in the total frequency, like where they can be surrounded by sound? Am I making that part up right there?
You might be about I have a singing bowl.
Okay.
Is very large. It's very large.
That's it.
People can stand inside of it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that particular bowl, it's the earthier ohm frequency. That is like my go-to for a lot of folks, because it's so relaxing, and it's just like it's grounding in the heart. Not like just like grounding in the body and in the root. That's like a different kind of a grounding. It's very grounding in the heart center, and it's the frequency of our home. It's like the Bach rescue remedy of all the different healing frequencies. So it's one I work with a lot. So I have they're called foot bowls. So essentially, it's like you can stand inside of this large hand hammered singing bowl, and I'm playing, and I hit the bowl from different sides, because you know the way that the waves will travel from where the mallet actually hits the bowl, like it creates this like directional wave. So I get it all around the rim, and as you're standing in there, because you have your pressure on the bottom, the vibrations are literally like vibrating the bones in your body. Like you're standing there, and you'll feel like your sacred architecture is vibrating with Om, the frequency of our planet, bringing you back to the heart center, and just everything is okay. And like I can accept, and I can have unconditional love for everything that is around me, and it's just deeply relaxing. It can be very intense too. I don't like to do it for too long for people, because you feel like you're just literally going to float away after a period of time. But yeah, I think that's what you might have been thinking of.
Yeah, it was. It's fascinating to me. I feel like we've just barely scratched the surface of some of the technologies that are emerging, some of the healing properties that have been used in the past, and some of the relationship it has to today. And you have to come back, because I think that there's a lot more we can cover. I think this is a good foundation for people to begin understanding. Maybe it gives them a little view into the past and a quick snippet of the future. And I don't know how much you could say, but is there is there some things that you're working on that you want to tell people about, or? You don't
Well,
have to. You don't have to. I don't want to put you on the spot here.
I'm just trying to think if, well, I really love um, to share the
Right.
information, about how powerful sound and frequency is. It's like,
Incredible.
um, I wanna share with people that, how simple it can be to really enter that, like, that unitive field of consciousness that is vibration.
Yep.
And it's just like it's just that simple. Everything is vibrating around us, and like you are vibrating, and it's all it's just this
Yeah.
beautiful like life is just this beautiful symphony that is constantly unfolding and happening. It's like everybody is a different note in the song, and everything has a purpose within that. I feel like the sound and frequency can really show that to us, and whether it's you're meditating in a sound healing, or you're receiving a sound therapy session, or like, maybe you're dancing with your friends at a show somewhere. It's like there's different ways that you can enter that unitive field. Um, so, that's something that I feel like I'm always like wanting to strive to show people through the sound, just like how simple it can be, or how simple, it is complex, but also it's simple too. Healing and feeling. And I feel like another thing I'm really passionate about that I feel like the sound can be a vehicle for is, um, and this is something I've been thinking of a lot more lately too, with where I want to go with my work, is just this reconnection with the medial.
Mm.
I know I've said that a few times, and the realm of the medial. And I think what I mean by that is like there is this um, connection that I believe every living thing is, we are born connected. We are born like with this sense of connection to everything that's around us, and that there are things that are unseen, and our culture has, it's like severed this connection. Over culturalization calls for us to sever that connection with the unseen. What happens there in that realm of the unseen is like, I feel like that's where you can really feel like the heartbeat of the universe is there. It's not something you can see. It's something that you just feel inside of yourself, you know? And there's also like, there's so much information that's available for us to, and like wisdom that we can obtain from those medial realms. And I think as beings, it's like human beings, we are, you know, born to exist in both places. We dream at night. We sometimes like we just get inspiration that just seems to come out of nowhere. That's, to me, that's that connection to the medial. And I think that sound can really, really help provide a healing of that connection. It can really help assist people to drop into a deeper state of like that kind of, it's like this childhood innocence. It's like you look at a
Mhm.
child, and they are filled with wonder, and they don't, they can, they're not, they're not over acculturated yet. They're so open, and they can feel things that we have cut ourselves off to. And sometimes they can even see those things. And sure, there's some people who maybe have, more of that connection to the medial than others. I think of like, medicine people and seers and
Right.
the wise women, and these different positions that have always been a part of like ancient culture. And a lot of that I feel like has been removed. It's like there's billions of people on the planet, yet we're all expected to fit in like to what? Like, these okay, this is what you can be in the world, and there's only so many options, and there can't be anything outside of them, you know. And it's like, well, we all just want to fit in and be a part of society and be accepted. And so we'll cut off our connection to the medial in order to fit some mold that maybe isn't truly what we are. I find that sound can really help us enter those medial places, and it's like this this vehicle to maybe heal that connection a bit and find what's there. Um, I'm thinking of this story, this like folklore story. I cannot remember the actual culture. I believe it's like a European culture that it comes from, but it kind of speaks to this issue, and it's a little bit spooky, but it's like really close to Halloween, so I feel like maybe it's appropriate to share.
Yeah.
Um, so it's the story of the Urkunik. There's this being that's called the Urkunik, and in some stories he's called Earl King. And so this Urkunik being is like, it's like this it's this force that steals. And all these there's all these different mythologies where we can come across this same sort of an idea or a figure that's like, oh, there's this thing in the darkness that can steal. If you're not careful, if you're not paying attention, it'll come and steal you or steal your life. And the story goes is that there is, the Urkunik or the Earl King, he wanders the forest, and he's just waiting for like an unsuspecting person to come and wander. And then, they'll come and steal their life and steal their soul. And so the story goes is that, and everything has this has a lot of meaning, like every character, right?
Right.
So a father and a son are riding on a horse through the forest. And the little child is, he's full of wonder. He's got a great big imagination. He's completely in his heart. And, he doesn't like keep his love from anybody or everything or anything. And he's just completely open. He's that our energy, this child represents our inner child, like our connection to the source and to life. And then the father, he's, he's a bit more stoic. He's had some experiences, and he's maybe a little bit hard or a little bit harsh, but that's because he knows how the world can be, and it can be tough, and he's here to be a teacher and a protector, and this is his mindset. And then there's the horse, and the horse is like our instinctual nature, right? It's our instinct in this story, and the horse loves the little boy. The horse loves this family. So anyway, they're going on through the forest, and then all of a sudden the little child says, "Father, Father, the Urkunik is here. He's here in the forest, and he's following us. I see him over there." And the father says, "Oh, no, no, no. There is no Urkunik. You don't see anything. It's probably just a creature in the woods that is scampering around, or it's probably just a bird or something like that. There is no Urkunik. You are safe." And so they keep going a little further, and then the little boy says again, "Father, Father, I can see him. The Urkunik is here. I can see his crown of leaves, and I see his cape, and he's following us. He's coming." And the father says, "Oh, no, 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 no. There is no Urkunik. It's probably just the leaves in the trees that you're seeing, or the mists in the woods. There's no cape. There's no crown. There's no Urkunik. You're safe." And they keep going, and then the little boy says, "Father, the Urkunik, I can feel him. He's here. He's right upon us." And the father says, "Oh, no, 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 my son. It's just your imagination. It's not real. It's not real." And they keep going. And then he says again, he's like, "Father, the Urkunik is right here. He's right next to us now. I can feel him. I can see him." And then the horse feels the presence of the Urkunik. So he takes off into the woods. And the horse gallops, and he runs and he runs and he runs and he runs. And eventually he stops. And when he stops, the father sees that the child has died in his arms. And the reason for that, and that the Urkunik had come and taken the child, because the Urkunik had taken the father long ago. So I think about that story a lot because I feel like it speaks about over-culturalization. Like the father is like the culture, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the little child is us. It's like we don't want to be we know on some intrinsic level that our connection to the medial is real and it's like important. And you know, it's like the culture can stifle that, and it can, you know, it can cut us off from this beautiful innocence and connection to love and that we have to the world. So I know it's kind of like a dark story, but
It's
I
beautiful.
feel like it's important too to speak of, because I think that um, there's this expectation from society and culture that we have to like erase this part of ourselves, that we can't be in touch with that little child in us that is, you know, connected to everything. And it's like the people around us, even when we're growing up and telling us, you know, it's like, oh, you gotta like shut this out, like you can't like, you know, be tuned into these like unseen parts of the world, or it's not real, or, you know, that love and that innocence, it's just like that's something you have to just, you know, cut. And it's like I don't think that's true. I think it's so important. And the horse, the instinct of the horse, it's like we know we want to, we don't want to be you know, stifled by the culture, you know. So I bring up that story in reference to that question because I feel like with the work that I'm doing, it's I want to revive that little child, you know, and you know, whatever kind of work that I'm doing in the world, I want to remind people that the healing is possible, and like that connection is something that we can all revive, you know, that can all be reestablished. If it's gone or if it's like weakened, we can strengthen it. And I truly believe that, um, you know, we can experience a lot of healing in this world if we can remember, you know, our true nature, you know, what it really can mean to be human, and they kind of call back um, these ways of seeing and being in the world that the ancients always knew about, you know, and practiced and spoke of, and it lives on in stories, and, you know, and in some cultures it's still there too. So, um, so yeah, you know, I want to, I like to use sound as a way to do that because I feel like, yeah, I'm making the sound, but the sound speaks for itself. And it's not something that like I have to say or like try to convince. It's like something that can be felt in the body and in the being. And you know, and it can induce such a state of like gratitude, like just natural. It's like, oh, like you hear beautiful music, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, thank you so much for the music, you know,
Yeah.
you know, and that state of gratitude, that's where like miracles and magic and um, you know, beautiful things can happen from that space. So
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. It's access. It it's something that we all have access to. It's not held behind a barrier of like $10,000 per visit, or, you know, there's this beautiful thing that we all possess if we have the openness to accept it on some level, you know. And when I think about the story, on some level, it makes me think that maybe the people we love and care about the most are the people that have already died in some ways, you know. And like that's very difficult if you love someone who is the closest person to you, to see that part of them that has died and is like kind of is uncomfortable because they see it alive in you. You know what I mean? On some level, it's like, oh, that's, how are you going to deny your child that? Or how do you talk to your mom or your father who you've seen has already severed that connection and have found ways to make it okay? Like, that's super sad to me to see people that have found that connection. And It's a beautiful story. I'm super thankful that you told it to me. I'm going to be thinking about it for quite some time. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Mhm.
Rachel, I'm fascinated by sound. I'm fascinated by what you do, and I'm fascinated and thankful that people are out there doing what you do. And I really see the future of what you're doing is something really beautiful and open and helpful to not only the people in your community, but to the people of the world. And it's wonderful. And before I let you go though, where can people find you? What do you have coming up? What are you excited about?
Well, I'm based in out of Denver, Colorado. So I do right now. I'm doing mostly house calls. I do have a space that um, I'm going to be seeing people for individual sessions, whether it's I do sound massage and sound therapy, which they're basically the same, but a sound massage is a little bit more of just like, like a one-time kind of a session. You can get as many as you want or as little as you want. It's a lot more of like a gentler, kind of a more rejuvenating sort of experience. And in sound therapy, I do as a series of sessions with people to really get down to like the nitty gritty, like the root of a problem. So that's usually it's in my sound therapy sessions that I'm bringing in a lot more of the more powerful frequencies in the work that I'm doing. Um, I also do every other, out in Denver. Every other week, I'm doing Kotomo sound meditations in a healing center called Abundant Lifestyle. So you can look that up on the internet, and you'll see my schedule, and you can sign up for that. Yeah, and I do my work with the Moksha Journeys team as well on retreats here in Colorado, where we're using Psilocybin sessions for folks. And I come in and I do sound healing ceremonies as a part of that. Sometimes even like during the actual experience itself, or as like an opening or a closing. And also for integration after the journey is over. I come in and do like a sound therapy integration session with folks. But that's the best way if anybody is interested in experiencing what I do, is to come see me in Denver, Colorado. I have a website called morningstarsoundtherapy.com. And on that website, you'll have everything that you need to get in contact with me, whether by phone or by email. And yeah, I travel all around the state. On occasion, I'll travel out of state. But yeah, so that's how you can reach me.
On your website, can people see, is there like clips of you playing music?
I do. I do have a clip of me playing the Kotomo on there. And if you were to go to my website, and there's I have a section that's called Sound Healing. And if you just were to click that at the very top, you'll see a video of me playing the Kotomo. So you could see what it looks like, and you could also have a listen to hear those healing frequencies of that instrument.
It's fascinating. I'm so stoked to talk to you. Ladies and gentlemen, do yourself a huge favor. Go check out the website. Go down to the show notes. Reach out to Rachael if it's something that you're interested in, or you want to learn more about the true power of sound and what it can mean for you and the people around you. And it was a fascinating conversation, Rachel, and I'm truly thankful for your time. Hang on briefly afterwards. I'm going to speak to you afterwards for a moment. But to all of our friends here listening, thank you so much for hanging out with us. That's all we got. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Aloha.